Good morning on this beautiful February 28th, the last day of the month. And because it's the last day of the month, I have been working on my budget. I balanced my budget for February and I made up a tentative budget for March. And of course, that is just to help as a guide to help me through what I need to prepare myself for, what I need to have in my checking account. And, but I just want to, in this video, I want to touch on the seven areas, I'll call them areas, they're really cares, of home economics, which is the main topic. And so these other areas would be the sub topics or the cares, 7 cares. And then also this coincides with the budget, and budgeting, budget and economy is the 6th one on the list that I have here. Now I went online and I got this list from another video. I'm not going to say what it is. It's part of a curriculum. And I didn't take the class, but I'm very interested in home economics, and I am proficient in and probably all of the areas here that are listed here. I work at it and I study it, and then I'm learning to budget. I have a new budget tracker that I'm using this year, and I've used it for 2 months. And I've come up with I'm learning the 8 categories, and then each category in budgeting, in each area of the budgeting, has subcategories. So on this beautiful sunny day, I just want to touch on these different areas and show you how the home economics and the budgeting coincide. And it's very clear if you pay attention to, as I go down the list. I have an outline that's going to help me with this. Okay, the 7 cares of home economics are cooking, child development, education and community, home management, sewing and textiles, budget and economy, and the 7th is health and hygiene, listed just like that. That's how I listed it. Okay, and because it's the end of the month and I've been working on my budget, I'm going to, I came up with, in my budget tracker, there are 8 different categories listed for expenses with multiple subcategories to consider. They may not all apply to your income and your walk in life, but for me, these are very important because I'm head of household now. 5 years ago, my husband passed away and left me with a home. And it's difficult to keep up with all of this, but I'm determined to stay in my home because I have no other choice. I cannot buy another house, and renting is almost impossible. It's so high in this area, and I want to live where in this area now. I'm from California originally, and now I'm living in Southeast Texas. So, okay, for the budgeting, there are 2 main areas of concern regarding income, and that is income and taxes. And in my budget tracker, you can list your incomes, first income, second. If you're married, you may have 2 incomes. And then they also list other incomes such as royalties, dividends, and rent if you're renting out property. So those are the 2 main areas because they, in this one particular, and it's a very good one, budget tracker that I'm using, they do list taxes. So if you have, and it's a good thing to kind of keep track of what you're paying, what's coming out of your gross income. So you can list that in this particular one. And so I'm just going to touch on that, and then I'm going to go into, on the other end of the budget, there are expenses and expenditures. And my particular budget tracker has 8 different categories listed for expenses with multiple subcategories to consider. And those are living expenses, mainly household expenses. B would be food. C, clothing. That's how I wrote it on my outline. I'll just go on with it. Clothing and personal care, transportation, recreation, medical expenses, insurance expenditures, and other expenditures, which would be, for example, education, childcare, and I also have listed credit cards and store credit cards. So it's important to pay those down as quickly as possible. Perhaps keep them low if you use credit cards. Keep it low every month and pay it off every month if you can. And I try to avoid putting large expenses on credit cards because it would take a longer period of time to pay those off. And of course, okay, so I have my budget made out for the month of March. I've already balanced my February budget, and I came out ahead because I did a low spending budget for, I did a no cost, and it turned out to be a low cost for January, and I came out way ahead there. And I left that extra money that I saved in my checking account, and I was able to apply it for February, and now I still have less than $1,000 left over for March, but I have some expenses coming up in March, and also some credit card debt that I accrued to. I started working on my garden, and I had a few expenses there. Okay, so that's mainly what I wanted to talk about today, and the subcategories would be housing or rent, or perhaps that's for the living expense category. So it would be mortgage, utilities, and mainly, they don't have a separate one for water, but I do have that bill coming up in March. So I would list it under maybe rent because I don't have to pay rent. And then also, I would include in the household expenses my T-Mobile bill, which includes Wi-Fi. So those things are all included in under living expenses, which are mainly household expenses. And the next one would be food, and under food would be, there are 2. That's food and other like incidentals, or they had another word for it, but that's miscellaneous things you would buy at the grocery store to save a trip to another store, and also restaurants. So I do, when I write a budget, I do list maybe a few dollars for in case I eat out. If I can't cook or something is a long day out of the house, I'll just pick up fast food maybe on that day. So I do list maybe $50 for restaurants, but most of the time I don't use that, so I can carry that over. And I try to do equal. What I try to do is keep my income and my expenses equal. Whatever my income is, I try to list, write it all out in a tentative budget so that I'm not going over it, I'm not going under it. But I try to go under it in actual. There are things that I do consider with, like, if I have money to carry over, I will put that under car repairs or something like that don't come up all the time. And then if I don't need to use it, I'll just carry it over again and add to it as time goes by. And also there's maybe Miscellaneous, which would be other expenses that come up, like if this month I did go ahead and I have a vitamin regimen that I found in Dr. Earl Mendel's Vitamin Bible. So I'm going to try that. I started it already this month, and it cost me about $41, and I put that on a credit card. So I will actually not pay for it until March. So that will be an expense that is coming up. Well, anyway, I just wanted to go over this and show you how that correlates. For example, cooking would come under food in the budget. Child development could be recreation, education, if your child goes to daycare or daycare for under 5 years old, or after school up to 12 or 13. And but I don't recommend children stay alone, or, latchkey kids stay alone. I think if somebody could be there for them, or they could go to a grandparent or somebody, that wouldn't charge you as much as daycare or after school care. But there is busing to after school care. So that's up to those who have that problem, childcare. And also, under other expenses, you would have education and childcare for a college student. So all these things correlate with the 7 cares of home economics, because many things are cost. So adults pay, grown-ups have expenses, and the smart thing to do is to budget. But if you're doing your own cooking, taking care of your own children, you're a stay-at-home parent with a support, and then the education, you have choices there, homeschooling or sending your children to private schools. And home management would be doing your own housework and doing your own budget and things like that, managing your home. Those are things that women often do, stay-at-home moms, and sewing and textiles. And some of these things are learned in school or when you're very young. For me, I started sewing when I was 12 years old, and it's a hobby as well as it does save me money, because I do it very carefully. And but I am just learning budgeting. I started keeping a journal of keeping track of my expenses, and I started that back in January of 2013, and I still have more than a third of the book empty. So it's only month by month and I do write down everything. I try to, everything I spend, and who I'm paying. So a budget is actually keeping track of what you're paying and who to, because you're actually, if you're doing your home management, you're what do you call it, a home executive, and it's very important. You have a very important job, and each one of these 7 areas of home economics, the cares, are actually, these could be professions. So it's good to be proficient in each of these 7 areas. If you're interested in health and hygiene, you can take classes on that and maybe become a nutritionist. Budgeting, that's accounting. That's very important to learn accounting. So you may want to take, after your children are older, you may want to take classes on these subjects to become more proficient and maybe get jobs in those areas. Whatever you enjoy the most. Cooking, that's a very important thing. Restaurants hire cooks all the time. Child development, teachers have to learn that. It's all of these things are so important, and you can learn them online. You can get books at the library and take college classes on many of these different subjects. Home managing is not much different than a business management, and for me, my home is my business. So I'm a retired business assistant. So this is something that's very important to me, and I take it very seriously. And I'm not planning to sell my house, but I want it to be always kept up as well as I can, so that if push comes to shove, I'm able to sell it for a good sum of money if I would have to. Now, I'm not planning to, and I don't want to. But anyway, you can see how important each one of these categories are. So that's all I have to say today. Thank you for listening to me. Please like and subscribe. Bye now.